webinar about continuous improvement. We're really glad to have Ryan, the CEO of Chartwell, today with us. He will introduce himself in a minute, but please give me the chance to introduce to those of you who are new to Eschbach and Shift Connector briefly the company. Eschbach is the inventor of Shift Connector. We're in the market for 17 years. We're focused on the process industry, pharmaceutical and chemical manufacturers. We have more than 65,000 users using our application with many companies well known across the globe like Bayer, Covestro, BASF, Albemarle, DuPont using our application. We have offices. The headquarters is in Germany, and we have an office in Boston, Massachusetts. And with that said, especially with Boston said, I really appreciate to hand over to my friend Ryan, the CEO of Chartwell Digital.
Thank you, Andreas. Great to join you. Greetings from the North Shore of Boston here. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, to wherever you're joining us from. Really glad to join you. Chartwell is a professional services company that's focused on driving results for manufacturing clients. A lot of concentration in process industries, whether it's specialty chemicals, commodity chemicals, energy sector, fast-moving consumer goods, pharmaceuticals, any company that needs to improve free cash flow from existing assets is primarily where we focus. And just in 2022, Chartwell launched the Chartwell Digital business unit, which is helping to embed the proven methodology from the consulting side of the business in SaaS applications for our manufacturing clients to use and to unlock additional improvement and sustain those results through their own internal improvement teams and engaging their staff. So great opportunity to come together and talk about this very relevant topic today to help all of our manufacturing audience get greater results from their investments in digital transformation.
Awesome. Thank you a lot, Ryan. And exactly that's really focused on the customer. I think that's really the mindset which we both have and which we also see in today's world, that we need more integration between certain applications, but also integration when it comes to facilitate those advantages as well as find those advantages together. And there is a lot of reason to search for those. We want to start with that, what we encountered in the last years. So what we have observed is really that there is permanent change and that this adds pressure to manufacturing management, but also on its employees. So we see in general this increased cognitive load due to technological enhancements in the production technology in nearly all industries, but especially in chemical and pharmaceutical. Furthermore, we see the increased domestic manufacturing capacity demand, which is also given to things like the Inflation Reduction Act and more domestic production, what we see in the market today, especially in the United States. At the same time, the industry is hit by skill shortage, and that was obviously with a baby boomer going to be retired, it was foreseen, but anyhow, it kind of hits everybody kind of as a bit of a surprise or as a challenge finally. And with that said, the skill shortage comes along with being attractive to Generation Z. So what we very strongly believe is that the today's job market also requires the employers to have very attractive workspace and work environment, which means at the very end also having the right applications in place, because the Generation Z is rather good in using their mobile phone instead of their pencil. So obviously there is something which they expect from today's workplaces. And this faster changing reality, which we are facing at the moment, definitely requires continuous improvement to also make a statement for customers and people joining from Europe. We see here in Europe very heavily the need for more energy efficient technology. So also that adds a lot of change, which finally needs to be improved after the change has been implemented. So a lot of reasons for today's webinar, which we shared together. And Ryan is wondering, what do you think about the developments?
Yeah, I have to agree. I think the imagery on this slide, Andreas, really speaks to that idea of headwinds, right? Where there's a lot coming at manufacturing organizations right now, and sort of our our idea here is to help expose some ways that manufacturers can fight against those headwinds, overcome those challenges in the industry, and really make sure that the changes that they're making are secure and lasting. I think it's not a question of if or when to invest in counteracting a lot of these market forces, but it's about how to shorten the time to value and how to make sure that those gains are really locked in. The industry trend is definitely shifting towards more digitization, more reliance on technology to capture knowledge. As I was meeting attendees at a lot of these trade shows and industry events this year, of course, people are concerned about the economic impact of a lot of these things, but they are truly concerned about the cultural impact, right? How can they continue to offer a workplace and organization that allows employees to build on their capabilities, to build their experience, and to capture that knowledge in a way that makes it easy to scale across a global organization. So it's certainly an economic challenge, but it's also an organizational challenge as well.
Great statement. And also with that said, we're very interested in learning more about the audience here, and you attendees are now asked for your opinion. And Brian.
Yeah, so I think this is a good chance to sort of get some input from the attendees. So you should see a survey pop up on your screen here. And we'd like to hear from you in terms of these barriers that you're encountering in your organization, these headwinds. Let us know, which of these apply most strongly in your organization. And then towards the end of the session today, we'll take a look at the results and take a look at the themes here. So the questions here are, which of these barriers does your organization encounter most often? Is it that difficulty in agreeing on priorities, either within or across the departments in your organization? Is it stale or incomplete analysis that impacts decision making, makes it harder to make decisions without reliable data? Is it inconsistent performance or coordination across the shifts? You see a lot of variation, shift to shift, day to day, that's disruptive to overcoming those headwinds. Or finally, maybe it's inability to resolve operational issues permanently, right? Fix it once, fix it forever, or do you see the same challenges coming back time and time again? So we'd love to hear your input, and we'll come back to those answers at the end of the webinar. So if we all know that results matter, but where are they going to come from is the next question, right? So if we take a step back and think about the performance of any manufacturing process, a widget factory in this simplified example, there's going to be variation day to day in the performance of that asset or that process, and we're striving to achieve some higher level of performance. And in general, there's three main levers to improve that process, three large types of opportunities, maybe another way of saying it. So Andreas, if you just do one click for me, those gains can come from either reducing variation during running hours, hour to hour, shift to shift. How do we achieve more consistent performance against a previously achieved level? The second example in the middle here would be reducing the frequency and the duration of downtime. It could be planned downtime, it could be weekly sanitation or preventative maintenance work, could be unplanned downtime that occurs from reliability challenges and asset failures. And then the final opportunity on the right-hand side here is how do we shift the whole average higher up, right? How do we identify constraints in the organization that are preventing that process from achieving a higher overall average, and how do we remove those constraints, right? So we could measure our performance against any of these lines across the page here. The gray line would be our recent average. The yellow line, perhaps we have a budget or a target that we're trying to hit. The blue line could be a previous best observed or best demonstrated capability of that process. And then the green line at the top is really what the laws of chemistry and physics would say are the limitations of our process capability. So really looking at a first principles view of that process and identifying what's holding us back from a higher level of performance. Go to the next one, please. So if we think about how to map these three opportunity types to a way of organizing the work in continuous improvement, I would propose there's sort of two modes of operating that align pretty well with these types of opportunities. On the left-hand side, we have this concept of an employee-led improvement approach, right? This, maybe think of it as a bottom-up model. Autonomous improvement is another phrase I've heard for the same concept. In this model, we're really looking to empower employees to understand their goals, to translate organizational goals down to the department, the shift, the individual level, understand methodologies and resources that they can apply in terms of tackling frequent challenges or issues that they see on a daily basis, and really to take action without asking permission, right? We want to give people a box to operate in where they are empowered to take action if it fits the opportunity, if it fits in methodology. Don't ask permission, just make the business better. And then on the right-hand side, there are certain opportunities in a business that no one person could really achieve alone, right? If we're talking about shifting the capability of an asset beyond what's been demonstrated in the past, by necessity, this is going to be a cross-functional effort. We're going to need to get process engineering, operations, maintenance, reliability, technology experts, input from sales and customer-facing resources to make sure we understand not only what's possible, but how to get there. And that's typically, those types of opportunities typically align more strongly with kind of a top-down or company-led approach, where we're pulling together teams, cross-functional teams, and giving them a charter and giving them an improvement target to go and work towards, right? So there's opportunity everywhere in a business, and making sure that we align the types of opportunities with the resource model is a way to accelerate that rate of improvement in a business.
Super interesting statements, Ryan. I'm very excited in learning more about how to find those opportunities later on. And what I also see is the question kind of how to integrate that on a I would say daily basis. And what we have on the next slide is our general model, how we connect, let's say, operation plant normal as it is shown on the left side. So let's say the standardized business process of operating a plant. It describes the daily manufacturing management business process, so to say. That's where OPN, Operation Plant Normal, stands for. And it covers the productivity reporting, loss accounting, the area of certain EH&S activities like safety rounds, etc., are all in this area, as well as the interaction with maintenance, so triggering the corrective maintenance process or interacting with the preventive maintenance process when it is about planning of a certain downtime that certain preventive maintenance could be done. So that all is covered in the OPN on the left side. And on the right side, we have here the CIP, the continuous improvement process, which is establishing a methodology, a process to continuously improve the plant performance, the plant energy usage, etc. And finally, also applying this culture of continuous improvements and allowing the high performance of a certain plant, of a certain team. And when it comes to high performance, it's always about people. And that's what we see here in the middle. In the center are the people which are operating on the one hand, the OPN, and on the other hand, as you mentioned earlier, also are integrated into a CIP process on two levels. So identifying opportunities, they are kind of also the eyes and the ears of the process engineers who are working daytime. They are 24/7 on the shop floor and can identify those things. In addition, also helping to the implementation of a certain change. So those people are important on both sides, and especially if it is about implementing then a change which was found, or a solution which was found by engineering. It's also the question who has an impact on the success or failure of such a continuous improvement idea, and it's the people in the middle. So the question is how to embed them, the both processes. So on the left side, we rather see the OPN, the Operation Plant Normal, with a tiered approach of meeting cascades. And on the right side, we see this CIP process where we will talk in a minute about. And you see it on the left side, it's in this pyramid. It's rather a cascaded hierarchical approach, starting at the foundation with the process data consumed in a shift handover, also called the tier 1 meeting, where process data is used to report, let's say, production amounts, etc., or account for losses, for downtimes, and so on. Those shift handover or tier 1 meetings are feeded into tier 2 meetings. So on a Monday morning, obviously, you have to cover the whole time until Friday evening. So there's a couple of tier 1 meetings covered in the tier 2, which is here called the daily production meeting, as shown on the T2 level. And then depending on the size of a certain site, even some have a daily site meeting implemented, especially if you have different process units to be covered and they need to be combined in the T3 meeting. We see a lot of customers doing daily site meetings as a T3. And obviously then afterwards also a T4 on a weekly basis or T5 on a monthly basis. Of course, everyone has implemented it with a slight different color, but finally, more or less, it looks like that in those tiered approach. And it has both. It has the escalation of issues which can't be solved by a certain tier and being escalated to the next tier. And as you see it on the second red arrow here, it's also a cascaded communication approach downwards, which simply means if someone is decided on T4, it needs to be communicated with the right content and with the right language to the next lower tier, that it can be embedded in the right way. So thinking about the pyramid and then also thinking about the right side. Obviously, when you are in a shift handover and you're asked for, let's say, accounting for a loss or accounting of not fit of start in time, finish in time of a batch, you're obviously triggered very often as an operator, as a shop floor person, also with an idea how to solve it. And that's exactly what these two arrows, the green one and the orange one, stand for. So the green one stands for having a solution proposal, having an improvement idea, which is then communicated towards the weekly continuous improvement meeting on a line level, but also the same then on a site level, which fits very nicely to what Ryan mentioned before on, let's say, the employee-led is rather the line level versus the site level ones is then probably covering for the larger investments or the bigger steps.
Yeah, and that coordination between the two is so essential, Andreas, right? We're talking about the same people, same resources, right? So if the improvement team, maybe they've made really good progress in understanding some persistent issues, they're ready to run a trial, maybe they're going to run a trial with some different process conditions or going after a yield loss, or maybe they're going to try running things at higher rates for a period of time. Yeah, of course, that needs to be coordinated with the production schedule, make sure the staffing is adequate. Maybe there's additional safety reviews that need to be done before those trials. There's a lot of coordination that needs to be done. Even more so if you talk about interventions to make maintenance work orders to change equipment, anything like that, right? So that coordination is essential, and making sure that you have very timely access to data, that everyone's aware of the situation, the value of those opportunities to make trade-off and prioritization decisions. All those factors are going to impact how quickly that business can improve and generate the financial return. So it's a matter of not only having both sides of the coin operating, but having them closely integrated and coordinated.
That's awesome addition. And if you think about those integrations, we also see that the picture has many different views, or the same story is looked at from different angles. And that's also what we have here in this slide. We're slightly giving a bit an idea what comes next about those different views the people have on the same type of information. And it's also a question of the user experience those people have and the level of user-centered software which we deliver to the different people here, because finally, it is about collaborative views on the one hand and offering them opportunities like being on a safety round to create a certain improvement idea while they are in the field and make things easy. And as mentioned before, really embed those activities into each other, as you said, so get it very close to each other. And finally, on our model here, it is all about getting the different roles integrated on one single platform. On the left side, the different people with their responsibilities, and on the right side, the different applications. So it's a lot also about integrating the both worlds, the best of the people as well as the best of the machinery or software, because we want to avoid the risk of human communication errors, or that somebody knows something but he hasn't shared it because he's working on night shift. You would like to give them easy opportunities to do so and get visibility across all the different roles, but also across all different devices. So being independent of a certain desktop or a certain control room, and collecting knowledge about the plant so that it is available to all people in the plant, even those who are not at work at the moment. So like a process engineer, which usually works on a day shift from Monday to Friday. And that adds all towards more transparency, a single point of truth, a single point of collaboration, where the people have transparency across the shifts, transparency across different locations. And yeah, let's have a look how that could be done on a daily basis here. We see here this guy, 4 a.m. in the morning, he encounters an outlier in a certain batch phase. So there is a problem which he gets reported from the OT data. He recognizes that, he's informed in his shift handover protocol, but even more, he can see here all the batch phases according an ISA 88 in this case. He reports a vacuum problem at a certain pump. He selects this pump as well, gives some prose text with additional description. And in this case, he also activates the priority to morning meeting. So he escalates it even to the tier 2. He adds a PM notification, in this case, a repair request as an emergency repair request towards the maintenance team at the same time. Everything is collected, what he encounters, observed during the night. Sun is rising, and he will leave the shift. He hand over to the colleague, and the colleague then afterwards is in the tier 2 meeting here, reporting back to the whole crew of the tier 2 meetings. Everything is at hand. They have the information from the night shift operator available, can dive into certain problems, see details, and kind of have also such a repair request at hand. And this all integrates kind of the different tier levels up to tier 3. And if you think then about the further levels, you also have kind of, let's say, the business unit level, which is then on tier 4 or 5, where you have weekly meetings, where you want to understand your whole manufacturing network. And the cool thing about it is you have it reported on the line level, but it's also available towards the business unit reporting. So it connects the shop floor to the top floor and has one single source of truth. That all helps definitely on getting a better overview, getting more reliable data, and standardize the reporting of, for example, the overall equipment effectiveness throughout the company, and establish one single way of reporting. And it must not be limited to an OEE value. It could also be things like here, this SNOP, where we're comparing the SNOP target with actual production and checking the SNOP compliance. And as you can see here, these 4 different sites around the globe have across the year certain SNOP compliance achieved, and you see some have probably a seasonal dip, but others have then maybe some shutdown phase, as you see here in the German or in the Shanghai plant in October, where you see a certain dip. So these meeting cascades giving a lot of transparency from tier 1 to tier 5. It adds a lot of transparency. And now the question is, wouldn't those people now be triggered to have improvement ideas? And that's where we come with the CIP process, which is then also embedded as shown before in that diagram. So if we start on the left side, we need to monitor all the time the different portions as the different KPIs as shared earlier with the with those tier meetings. The second one is then also about prioritizing what really matters. We saw earlier that vacuum problem, but maybe that's a one-time thing. The question is finally, how can we do that better? But then it comes also a lot to competencies around how to solve it. And Ryan would appreciate if you can step in here.
Yeah, I think this model is really a great framework to build off of, and within each of these little circles, there's a lot in there, right? So we're talking about not only providing systems, to make this efficient across a large organization and consistent, but we're also talking about capabilities, right? Individual capabilities. I haven't met anyone yet who went to college and majored in problem solving, right? It's not something that's a discipline. It's a capability that we learn while doing other things, right? And while there are very specific methodologies, of course, you can go and take training courses. There's books, libraries full of methodologies to apply. In my experience, there's a few that are much more powerful than the others and can really crystallize a lot of things that people learn through experience, and their intuitions may tell them the right way to approach solving a problem. But having a methodology that's been proven and adopted across the organization not only builds in that individual capability, but it makes the organization much more effective because we're doing things consistently. We all speak the same vocabulary. So I do have some examples to share a little later in the presentation of how to apply some of those things. But again, the idea here is we're not only establishing a system, but we're also building capabilities inside each of these four circles here. So I do just want to remind the attendees that throughout this presentation, please drop your questions into the Q&A function of Zoom. We'll be monitoring those and answering those questions towards the end. So please drop your questions in there as we go.
Perfect. That would be great. Receiving some questions, and thanks for that reminder. Yeah, I would say for the further process, it's also about how you need different capabilities, different functionalities to get there, to solve these three circles, and that's what we will share now, also with some further screenshots, first on the Shift Connector side and then on the Chartwell digital side. So let me start with the functionality, which is very much on the, let's say, prioritization, which is embedded into the OEE, for example. So we talked earlier about our OEE module and to report on certain losses. And what we see here is two screens, which starts off with a Pareto diagram where you see, let's say, that vacuum problems seem to be one big thing, which is kind of lowering the output of that facility and reduces the reliability of that facility. And if you see on the screen in the front here, you can see that we can go down to all the events. We see a duration here with these bars, so we easily can find out what is the most pressing problem. You see in this pie diagram on the top that the pump 7010 is probably something to act on, and how we can act on we'll see later on with Ryan. But first of all, here it is easily embedded, so you give on a, let's say, shift supervisor, shift handover or operator level, a lot of functionality into the hands of people, a lot of data into the hands of people, which just make them aware. And again, it's about triggering then also solution ideas, thinking about what they're doing, what they encounter. And that's what you see here in this video, how easy it is if you have a certain quality deviation, for example, about here a dosing problem, and you can easily add now a continuous improvement proposal. They have to add the problem. They also write here down the cause, how they encounter it, the measure taken, as well as a solution idea if they have any, and furthermore also adding an effort and benefit estimate. So making the people on the line level thinking about their idea and what could it mean to the company or to the plant. Now, fast forward, Friday, weekly CIP meeting on the line level. You see all the ideas generated, get together. You can easily dive into those and you can gatekeep them. So the whole CIP rounds either approves it, rejects it, important, if rejected, give a comment, but having everything at hand, even the quality deviation where it was attached to at the beginning. So easy to create, no hurdle, just sharing and also receiving feedback, because that's the important portion as well on creating ideas. The people working on a night shift, they want to have a feedback on what the CIP meeting thought about that and how they decided about it. In this case, now approved. Let's think about also another topic. We mentioned earlier, this collaboration is so important. It's the one direction sharing ideas, but also sharing learning. So if there are portions to be shared with the team, either how they should handle a certain process, or maybe if an improvement is implemented, how they have to get it in operation. We see here how we can see on a shift connector mobile, or on a mobile device, the shift connector, a certain learning video or something similar. Again, let's share how easy it is. We can attach such an micro learning, as we call it here, easily with some description, but also further attachments, having files like a video or an explanation here in the attachment. And now the key is kind of share it with the whole team. So we have the shift crews here available. Everyone should receive it. Now the micro learning is shared. Even with those who are on vacation, they are coming back, they see it in their inbox that they have to watch that video or review a certain learning. They enter the mailbox, they open the mailbox and just confirm with their password. And with that given, obviously the continuous improvement team can see that one of these 16 people has already signed for it. And yeah, that's the one thing, how to integrate. Another option is simply integrate it into your daily rounds. So if you kind of want to make it standard, you can integrate it into a safety walk or similar. So for example, you have this person here in the basement, so it needs to be offline, they walk around, they using Shift Connector Go, our way of doing outside rounds, doing operator safety walks, inspections, so to say. And you see here that we have a new question: check the measuring probe during plant tours, clean if necessary. And we also want to understand, was it okay? Did they need a cleaning or not? So depending on what you need. All that is what you see is what you get. So you can easily configure those checklists, extend it, and share it with the whole team. And that's a big portion of it. It needs to be adjusted to the local needs. You need to act easily, as Ryan said earlier, and you need to get those portions between the standardized tier meetings as well as the CIP closer, so that CIP measures or CIP improvements can be easily shared with the whole.
There's another case study from the pharmaceutical industry, focused on yield and throughput. We'll give you kind of some previews of the applications, and if anyone's interested in seeing a more in-depth demonstrations of the Chartwell Digital applications, please just head over to our YouTube page. You can see a full demo and then some smaller kind of feature level demos as well. So the focus here is going to be in specific technical problem-solving methodologies. So fitting into that green bubble that we saw on the previous slide of how do we go about and solve these challenges once the opportunity has been identified. And there's two problem-solving methods that have generated massive results for Chartwell's clients that are embedded inside our solutions, right? So the first one is golden cycle analysis, and the second one is variable tree models and covariate analysis. So these techniques may be familiar to some people on the call here today. I do want to go through a specific example to show how they are applied in this pharmaceutical context here. So the scene, if you all want to sort of put on your PPE and come with me on a visit out into the operating area, we're going to visit a pharmaceutical manufacturer today. It's a well-respected facility in a well-respected global organization. Tell me the last time you've seen polished wood floors that look that meticulous in a production facility. And the business context is that they're approaching the patent cliff, right? 2 years left on patent, where they still have a significant price advantage in the market. Sales demand exceeds their current production capacity, so we would call that production constrained. If they're able to unlock additional throughput from their existing assets, they have the sales demand to sell that, but only for 2 more years, right? So a short enough time horizon where building another facility, doing a large capital project to expand the capacity, the time horizon is just not there to recover that investment. So when the client reached out to Chartwell, our process was to start with what we call an opportunity scan, which is a way to review not only the recent data around production, but also to spend time in the facility with the team understand, do some observations of how the plant runs and identify, quantify some of the specific improvement opportunities to capture that demand that's in the market. So you can see on the right-hand side here that by connecting the Chartwell digital solution to the historian data, the batch data, the quality data, by connecting those historical data sources, we can very quickly model the process, and the system will calculate the capability of each step in the process. And it stood out quite clearly that the bottleneck asset in this process was the reactor vessel and the reaction step in the process. So focusing on the reactor, if we could increase the throughput of that reactor, we knew we had capacity in the upstream and downstream processes that would translate into an overall output increase for the plant. So we knew where to start, and we needed to look at the next level of detail. So we sat down with the leadership team and some of the process engineers, and we looked at the overall batch durations and yield over the previous months. And there was only about 5% variation between those overall batch statistics. And that's where the engineers sort of sat back in their chairs a little bit and said, yep, see, this is just confirming evidence. We're running a very good operation here. Probably not a lot of opportunity to do much more. There were some very legitimate constraints around process safety and the certifications that they had for their GMP on the process. Very important that any changes that we made to the process would not elevate those risks. So we knew what sort of the hard constraints were to work within. Is a very exothermic reaction, and there were some very legitimate concerns about people and process safety, and then obviously the certifications that were in place. So we know we needed to go to the next level of analysis and look for where the opportunities might be hidden. And you can see on the right-hand side here, the solution that we have automatically evaluates the recent batch and phase data to not only calculate what that best demonstrated capability is, and also then calculate sort of best of the best, right? So the golden cycle, if we could achieve the best individual phase performance consistently and create the sort of perfect batch across all of those batch phases, how much opportunity is there to recover? And what we found here, again, by looking at the sort of 5th percentile best achieved, we found up to 63% of the time at the reactor could be unlocked for additional production. So again, by looking at that next level of detail and seeing that there is variation in the durations and the yields from each of those phases within that complex reaction recipe, a significant amount of opportunity was revealed. And this is the point where the engineers, kind of leaned forward a bit and said, "Oh, this is interesting. This is new information. Let's see if this is real, right? Not just a hypothetical opportunity." So the next step in the process would be to charter an improvement team, as we saw in the introduction. There was a very strong business case to devote some resource to this. Even if the team could only achieve half of that, 63% potential opportunity, it was well worth the investment in creating that team to follow this methodology. So this is the point where we sort of flip from opportunity identification mode to opportunity realization mode, and applied the next problem-solving technique that we call variable tree analysis and covariate analysis. So again, the little video you're seeing on the right-hand side shows how embedded within the Chartwell digital application is a way to model that process, to create relationships between those process variables, and to directly link the nodes of that variable tree to the source data coming from a historian. So it gives an engineer a very intuitive and resource to do that analysis without switching windows, without switching tabs, right? So we're not running queries in SQL, dumping stuff into a Power BI platform, scribbling on the whiteboard, whatever those methods are. It's in a secure interface. It allows process engineers to collaborate and apply those techniques consistently, across a large organization. And by systematically understanding where the source of that variation was in those batch phases, we scored a double win. What was happening was that the temperature controls around the reactor, specifically in some of the recycle streams. The temperature controls were not adequate. The insulation, cladding, heat trace things around that were not consistent, right? So we had some streams where good product was actually staying in solution and being flushed into the waste stream, and we had other parts of the reactor where the temperature was too low, and that good product was crystallizing, falling out of solution, and then being flushed out, during cleaning in between batches. So by exploring this rigorously, we found out that relatively straightforward changes to the process, something that can be accomplished with a maintenance work order around insulation and heat trace, things like that, could realize these gains. No change to the process, no need to recertify, no lengthy kind of training process to go through in terms of how to run, just very focused control of temperature to keep that product where it belongs, and to not only reduce the duration of those batches, but increase the yield at the same time. So, stories like this, it always sounds obvious in hindsight, right? How could these people have let this go on for so long when you explain it in 5 minutes? And I think we need to step back to a world, before the solution is obvious, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of process variables that could be contributing to this. And how a team evaluates those and prioritizes their exploration of those process variables and those trends really directly translates into the speed of results. So by building this structured understanding, by focusing our analysis on the process conditions that truly relate back to that outcome, that performance outcome that we're trying to drive, that's what makes this technique so powerful, and really accelerates the rate of results. So the results, the outcome for this business were really quite powerful. So it was a £4 million impact on their bottom line that was achieved in 3 months. So for the business itself, not only did they massively increase their free cash flow and the results they could yield over those last 2 years while they were still on patent, it allowed that site to spin out from their controlling company, and for the leadership team there to run a successful independent business at this much higher profit margin. And for the people on site, it really was an eye opener. They were able to solve these issues that had been persistent, that were sort of hidden from view, and it really turned on a sense of curiosity, intellectual curiosity, and gave the team a sense of empowerment of, hey, we can probably find other opportunities elsewhere, right? That sense of, let's go and challenge some of those other constraints that we have in our business. Where else do we think that we're operating sort of as good as we can? Maybe there are opportunities hidden elsewhere by applying this technique. So again, it's going back to that balance of not only the technical results, but the capabilities we're building in the organization, the ability to document the results from this problem-solving technique and store it in a way that can be accessed later, can be shared with other facilities that may have similar equipment, similar processes. So it becomes a multiplier on the results. So as we think about taking technology and really embedding these methodologies back into that continuous improvement loop that we talked about before, monitoring performance, prioritization based on facts and recent analysis, timely analysis, applying technical problem-solving methodologies consistently and effectively, and then turning that into a way to share, collaborate, and engage the organization. It's quite a powerful improvement loop that we can achieve there.
Awesome example. That's really very outstanding, the example you shared. And I have already some further questions, but probably we should start with the audience and give them the time. And here we see the result of the questionnaire. Thanks for contributing here. And it's on us to comment on that. And Brian, we'd love to start.
I think that the thing that jumps out to me is that idea of coordination, right? We have a kind of a tie score between challenges in agreeing on priorities, across teams or within teams, and then that one is tied with inconsistency in performance or coordination across shifts, right? So I think reinforcing the need that Andreas spoke to earlier around, how do we have a way to drive that coordination, that visibility, interacting with folks, through technology rather than relying on, that coffee stained notice that's pinned, on the corkboard in the break room, or word of mouth. If I'm not at work on Thursday and I missed, the shift handover, I missed the announcement from the department lead. How else can I get that information and stay in loop?
And I think it's really also kind of the culture which will change. So if you add those transparency aspects in those with such a platform, you really start changing the culture, the changing of let's say say something, see something, say something, but also the transparency of not blaming someone for mistakes and rather looking for solutions. So all that good aspects of establishing a different culture of continuous improvement, but also high performance. I think that's aspects which come along with those changes of establishing a platform. It's interesting that we have the both top results here on this, let's say, rather collaboration aspects. Now, I would also love to start the Q&A round, and I think there are some pieces in. Let's.
Yeah, there's one here I can read out, Andreas. It's probably a good one for you to take because it relates back to the demo you gave before. So the question is, how can the online tool adapt to the existing process or methodology in a business? Change management is going to be a challenge. If my organization follows a different process than what's embedded in the Shift Connect solution. So maybe you can speak to flexibility and the ability to adapt the solution to the process.
Thanks a lot for that question. So that's really a very important one to us. So we have established a general concept which we call global standard and local adaptation, because what we see in the chemical industry, it's about brownfield plants. So very seldom we run into a greenfield plant where we have kind of can apply things. It's very often that things are given. And in addition, if you think about the process technology and being in the process industry, chemical and pharmaceutical, if you travel around the world, it's very seldom that you see twice a similar plant. And that tells a lot about you have to adapt to the local circumstances, but also to local regulations. So when it comes to process safety, worker safety, you have different regulations in the different countries, and you need to adapt on a local level, obviously. At the same time, mentioned earlier, the OEE portion, you want to have a global standard on how to report. So this combination of global standard and local adaptation is vital to get something in the field and roll it out. And it has both aspects. You want to have the benefit of standardization as an enterprise, but also on the local level, you want your daily needs to be fulfilled with such an application. Otherwise, you come back a year later after the implementation of such an application, and you still find new Excel tools emerged. And that's exactly what you want to prevent.
Yeah, I would say it's the same thing on the continuous improvement side, Andreas. Everyone's already doing something, right? So the idea of kind of brownfield, I think, applies. I don't think there's any organization left these days that doesn't have some sort of internal methodology, internal sort of approach to continuous improvement or operational excellence. So, from my view, it's about augmenting that existing methodology and making sure that people are armed with the most effective tools and they know how to map a problem-solving methodology to an opportunity that it's well suited for, right? So if we think about the types of opportunities that we mentioned at the very beginning, reducing variation, shift to shift, day to day, addressing low frequency, high impact outages, or frequent, repeating kind of planned downtime, whether it's weekly sanitation, whatever that might be. There's techniques that are well suited to that, right? There's things like single minute exchange of die that are great at, approaching, cyclical processes and removing, removing time from processes that repeat. If you're looking to, shift the performance of a distillation column, beyond the yield that's ever been achieved before, SMED is the wrong tool, right? So we need to have different techniques. It's probably better to apply something like I showed here around variable tree analysis, covariate analysis, things like that. So again, it's not about forcing anything into an existing organization, or forcing the organization to conform to what's baked into the software. It's about making sure that we can adapt and incorporate what's working and do the things that work more frequently. So good question from the group. Thank you so much for that one.
Yeah, and I think that's a very interesting aspect as well. So how to get the change implemented, and that what we are really a strong advocate for is making the people part of the change. So really having a local person with within the plant being a super user who is able to change certain configurations. So getting them trained and having that implemented on the site, as we saw it earlier. So there is a new checkpoint in a checklist. Obviously, someone close to the plant or process manager must be able to add such a question without a big change request towards an IT department or something like that. So, but that's really one topic which we see. And in general, what I would be also interested in listening to you earlier, Ryan, about how this change was possible. What we also see very often, humans tend to see the solution also very fast, I would say. Kind of sometimes you see the solution as a human where you think it is right. I'm wondering to which degree does that matter, that we are not, let's say, acting too fast?
Yeah, I think there, maybe can you give me an example of that one, Andreas?
I was just wondering, obviously, if you see a certain problem as a human, you sometimes also see a kind of obvious solution. And sometimes I think the power of the team is kind of getting rather evaluating different solutions, etc. And I'm wondering how much of an impact does things like that play, like an interdisciplinary group or something?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes down to empowerment, right? So people who feel empowered to take action when they see a positive change that they can make, that they feel like they have the right to stick up their hand. They know what steps to take. They know how to raise that idea and get the resources to put the solution in place. So, I firmly believe that, every employee who walks through the gates at a manufacturing facility can see some way to make the business run better every day. And it may not be worth 4 million pounds at a go, but it's going to make a positive impact. And we want to make sure that each employee feels empowered to speak their mind, to point out where they see those ideas, where they see those suggestions. Great example that I can share is of that employee-led approach is that when I was working at an upstream energy facility, they gave each maintenance supervisor on each shift a fixed budget and a set of techniques to apply, so that if they saw kind of wasted time, wasted effort on their crews, they were empowered to fix them. So things like standardizing bit sizes to make taking apart assemblies and putting them back together with fewer tool changes, just make that change. Things like purchasing hand drills or power hand tools to reduce the manual effort of cranking on wrenches and things like that. So making sure people feel empowered that if you see a way to make the business better, if it aligns with our goals, if it doesn't violate any of our safety concerns, don't ask permission, just make the business better. So that empowerment can really go a long way.
Great. And I think that's a perfect ending also of our today's webinar. So I think in general, get it started, get it done, act. That's the most important thing, is to start with a small step and get forward with it. So yeah, for today's webinar, thank you so much. It was very interesting talking to you, Ryan. Thanks everyone who attended, and looking forward to have further webinars together.
That's great. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Have a good one. Thanks. Thanks everyone for